Kim Min-jun checked his watch as he walked through the empty lobby of Preston Tower. It was almost 9 o'clock on a Thursday night. The building was quiet now. Most people had gone home hours ago. Only a few offices still had their lights on. Min-jun had been working as a security guard at Preston Tower for 2 years. It was not his dream job, but it paid the bills. More importantly, it let him study for his business degree online during the slow hours. He worked the night shift from 6 in the evening until 6 in the morning. The pay was a little better for night work, and he needed every extra dollar. His younger sister was in her 3rd year of college. Their parents had passed away in a car accident 5 years ago. Since then, Min-jun had taken care of everything. He made sure his sister could focus on her studies without worrying about money. She wanted to be a teacher. Min-jun was proud of her. The night shift was usually boring. Min-jun would walk through all 20 floors of the building every 2 hours. He checked that doors were locked. He made sure no one was in the building who should not be there. He watched the security cameras. Most nights, nothing happened at all. Preston Tower was home to many different companies. There were law firms, insurance companies, and tech businesses. On the 12th floor, there was a company called Vertex Solutions. They were a recruitment firm. They helped other companies find employees, especially in the tech industry. Min-jun had seen their fancy office during his rounds. Glass walls, modern furniture, and expensive coffee machines. Tonight felt like any other night. Min-jun had already done one complete check of the building at 7 o'clock. Everything had been normal. Now it was time for his second round. He took the elevator up to the 20th floor and started working his way down. He checked each floor carefully. When he reached the 12th floor, he noticed something different. The lights were still on in the Vertex Solutions office. That was unusual. Most people in that office left by 7 at the latest. Min-jun walked closer to check. Maybe someone was working late. Maybe they had forgotten to turn off the lights. As he got near the glass door of the Vertex office, he heard voices. Then he heard laughter. It was loud laughter, the kind people make when they have been drinking. Min-jun stopped. His job was to make sure everyone in the building was safe and following the rules. Drinking alcohol in the office was against building policy. He moved quietly toward the door. Through the glass, he could see 3 people inside. 2 men and 1 woman. They were sitting around a desk with a laptop. There were wine bottles on the table. The 3 people were clearly drunk. They were laughing very loudly at something on the laptop screen. Min-jun knew he should probably knock and tell them to leave. But something made him pause. The way they were laughing seemed mean. It was not happy laughter. It was the kind of laughter that made fun of someone. He heard one of the men say something. The words were ugly. They were making fun of someone's appearance. Min-jun felt uncomfortable. What were these people doing? 6 months ago, there had been an incident in the building. Someone had stolen equipment from one of the offices. After that, the security company gave all guards body cameras. The cameras were small and attached to their uniforms. Guards were supposed to turn them on whenever they saw anything unusual, or if they needed to talk to someone about breaking rules. Min-jun thought about the laughter and the drunk people in the office. This seemed unusual enough. He reached up and turned on his body camera. A small red light blinked on. The camera was recording now. Min-jun positioned himself where he could see into the office through the glass door, but where the people inside might not notice him easily. The 3 people were completely focused on the laptop. They did not see him. Min-jun watched as one of the men, who had blonde hair and wore an expensive suit, clicked something on the computer. A video started playing on the screen. Min-jun could not see the video clearly from where he stood, but he could see it was some kind of interview. The 3 recruiters started talking as the video played. Their comments were cruel. They were making fun of whoever was in the video. The way they talked made Min-jun's stomach turn. These were professionals. They worked for a respected company, but they were acting like bullies, the blonde man said. Something about the person in the video not being right for their clients. The woman laughed and made a gesture that seemed to mock the way someone talked. The 3rd man, who had dark hair, added his own mean comment. Min-jun realized what he was watching. These recruiters were looking at job interviews. They were reviewing people who had applied for jobs, and they were making fun of these candidates. But it was worse than just being mean. The things they were saying had a particular edge to them. Their comments were not just about qualifications or experience. He listened more carefully. The blonde man mentioned something about certain types not fitting in. The woman agreed and said something about keeping their clients happy by sending them people who matched their culture. The way she said culture made it clear she meant something else entirely. Min-jun had experienced discrimination before. He was Korean American. He had been born in the United States, but some people still treated him like he was foreign. He had seen his sister struggle to get internships even though her grades were excellent. He knew what prejudice sounded like, and he was hearing it right now. The three recruiters kept watching videos and making comments. They opened another video, then another. Each time they had something mean to say. Sometimes they fast-forwarded through parts of the interviews. They barely looked at the actual qualifications. They seemed to be judging people on things that had nothing to do with their ability to do a job. Min-jun kept his camera recording. His training had taught him to document anything unusual. This was definitely unusual. It might even be illegal. He was not sure exactly what laws covered this kind of thing, but he knew it was wrong. After about 20 minutes, the three recruiters finally started to pack up. They closed the laptop. They grabbed their wine bottles and put them in a bag. They were laughing as they left the office. They walked right past Min-jun in the hallway, but they were so drunk and so focused on their conversation that they barely looked at him. "Good night," one of them said to Min-jun as they passed. "Good night," Min-jun replied automatically. He watched them get into the elevator. Then he stood there in the quiet hallway, thinking about what he had just witnessed. His body camera had recorded everything. The video was automatically saved to the security company's server. But Min-jun had also saved a copy to his personal device, as guards were allowed to do if they thought they might need the footage for a report. Min-jun continued his rounds, but his mind was not on his job anymore. He kept thinking about those three people and their cruel laughter. He thought about the job candidates they had been mocking. Those were real people. They had probably worked hard to get those interviews. They had no idea that behind the scenes these recruiters were treating them like jokes. When he got back to his desk in the lobby, Min-jun sat down and tried to focus on his textbook. He had an exam coming up next week, but he could not concentrate. He kept hearing that laughter in his head. He kept thinking about what those recruiters had said. What should he do with this recording? Should he report it to someone, but who? The building management probably would not care. This was about what happened inside a private company. Should he tell the security company? They might just file it away and forget about it. Min-jun opened his laptop and started searching online. He wanted to know more about Vertex Solutions. Their website looked professional and impressive. They had a section about diversity and inclusion. They claimed to help companies build diverse teams. Reading those words after what he had just witnessed made Min-jun angry. The rest of his shift passed slowly. His co-worker Park Ji-won arrived at 6 in the morning to take over the day shift. She was a woman in her 40s who had been working security even longer than Min-jun. "Quiet night?" she asked as she set down her bag. Min-jun hesitated. "Mostly, but something strange happened." He was not ready to tell her everything yet. He needed to think more about what to do, but he knew one thing for sure. He could not just forget about what he had seen. Those recruiters had done something wrong, and someone needed to know about it. Min-jun could not sleep that morning. He lay in his small apartment staring at the ceiling. His mind kept going back to what he had recorded. He had seen and heard things that made him uncomfortable. But was it enough? Was it clear enough to prove something wrong had happened? Around noon, he finally got out of bed. He made coffee and sat down with his laptop. He connected his personal device and found the video file from his body camera. His hand shook a little as he opened it. He had watched the scene in person, but seeing it again on screen was different. It was evidence now. The video quality was good. His body camera had a clear lens and good audio. Min-jun could see everything through the glass door. The three recruiters were visible. Their faces were clear enough to identify them. More importantly, the sound was perfect. Every word they said had been recorded. Min-jun put in his earphones and started watching from the beginning. He wanted to understand exactly what he had captured. The video showed the blonde man sitting at the center. He was clicking through files on a laptop. The other two were sitting on either side of him. They all had glasses of wine in their hands. "Okay, let's look at this one," the blonde man said. He clicked on a video file. "James Wilson, MIT graduate, software engineer. A video started playing on the laptop screen. Min-jun could not see the video clearly from his camera angle, but he could see the 3 recruiters watching it. Almost immediately, they started making comments. The dark-haired man spoke first. "Look at this guy. Where did he get that shirt?" The woman laughed. "And that hair. Does he think he is going to an interview or a party?" The blonde man shook his head. "Just wait. Listen to how he talks." They watched for a few more seconds. Then the video showed someone speaking in the interview. Min-jun could not hear what the candidate was saying, but he could hear the recruiter's reactions. "Too aggressive," the woman said. "He is trying too hard." "That is what they all do," the dark-haired man added. "They think if they are loud and confident, we will not notice." "Notice what?" the woman asked with a smirk. "You know exactly what," the blonde man said. They all laughed. Min-jun felt sick. He knew what they were implying. They were not talking about the candidate's qualifications. They were judging him based on how he looked and talked, and from their comments it was clear they were focusing on his race. The woman took a drink of wine and then did something that made Min-jun even angrier. She started imitating the candidate's voice. Her imitation was exaggerated and offensive. She made the candidate sound stupid and aggressive at the same time. The 2 men laughed hard at her performance. "That is perfect," the dark-haired man said. "You should do that at the next company party. Can you imagine if we actually sent him to Goldman?" The woman asked. "They would call us and ask what we were thinking." The blonde man nodded. "Exactly. Our clients pay us to find people who fit their culture. And this guy," he pointed at the screen, "this guy does not fit. What about his resume, though?" The dark-haired man asked. "It actually looks pretty good. IT degree, 3 years at a startup, good references." The blonde man shrugged. "So what? There are plenty of qualified candidates. We need to send clients people they will actually want to hire. And be honest, when Goldman says they want someone for their team, what picture do they have in their head?" The woman nodded. "True, and it is not our fault if that is what they want. We are just doing our job." "Exactly," the blonde man agreed. "We give them what they want. That is why they keep coming back to us." They rejected James Wilson without any real consideration of his qualifications. They moved on to the next candidate. Then another. Over the 20 minutes that Min-jun had recorded, they looked at 5 different interviews. 3 of them were dismissed with similar cruel comments. The pattern was obvious. Min-jun paused the video. He needed a moment to process what he was seeing. These people were gatekeepers. They decided who got opportunities and who did not, and they were making those decisions based on prejudice, not merit. He thought about his own experiences. How many times had he applied for jobs and never heard back? How many times had his sister been rejected from internships even though she had perfect grades? Maybe they had faced people like these recruiters. Maybe qualified people were being blocked by others who did not think they fit the culture. Min-jun looked up James Wilson online. It was not a common name, but he added MIT and software engineer to his search. He found a LinkedIn profile that matched. The photo showed a young black man with a bright smile. He looked professional and confident. Min-jun read through James's profile carefully. The man was impressive. He had graduated from MIT with honors. He had worked at a successful startup for 3 years. He had published papers about software design. He volunteered teaching coding to kids in his community. He had letters of recommendation from professors and former bosses. This was someone who should have companies fighting to hire him. But according to his LinkedIn status, he was open to opportunities. That meant he was still looking for a job. How is that possible? Someone this qualified should have multiple offers, unless he kept running into recruiters like the ones Min-jun had recorded. Min-jun clicked through more of James's profile. His last job had ended 8 months ago. The company had closed down. Since then, James had been job hunting. 8 months. For someone with his background, that seemed impossible. But maybe it was not impossible. Maybe it was exactly what happened when people like those 3 recruiters stood between qualified candidates and good jobs. Min-jun made a decision. He could not just sit on this video. He had to do something, but what? He thought about his options. He could go to the building management, but they would probably just talk to Vertex Solutions privately. The company would deny everything or say the recruiters were just having a bad day. Nothing would really change. He could go to the police. But was this a crime? Min-jun was not sure. It was definitely wrong, but He did not know if it was illegal in a way that police could act on. He could report it to some kind of government agency, maybe the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. He had heard of them, but government processes were slow. It could take months or years, and in the meantime, these recruiters would keep doing the same thing to other candidates. Then Min-jun had another idea. What if he contacted James Wilson directly? What if he told him what these recruiters had said about him? James deserved to know, and maybe James would know what to do with this information. Min-jun opened LinkedIn again. He looked at James's profile and found the message button. He started typing, then stopped. What should he say? He had to be careful. James might think this was a joke or a scam. He wrote several drafts before he found the right words. He kept his message short and simple. He did not say too much, but he said enough to show he was serious. He explained he was a security guard who had witnessed something concerning. He said he had recorded recruiters from Vertex Solutions talking about James's interview in a very unprofessional way. He offered to share more details if James wanted to know. Min-jun read the message 3 times before he sent it. His finger hovered over the send button. Once he pressed it, there was no going back. This would start something. He did not know what, but it would be something. He pressed send. Now he had to wait. James might not check his LinkedIn messages right away. He might not respond at all. He might think Min-jun was crazy. Min-jun tried to distract himself. He made lunch. He studied for his exam. He texted his sister to check how her day was going, but his mind kept going back to that message. Had he done the right thing? Around 4 in the afternoon, his laptop made a sound. He had a new message on LinkedIn. His heart started beating faster. He opened the message. It was from James Wilson. "Thank you for reaching out," James had written. "I am not sure what to make of your message, but I am interested in hearing more. Can we talk on the phone?" Min-jun felt a wave of relief and nervousness at the same time. James was willing to listen. That was the first step. But now Min-jun had to explain everything. He had to convince James this was real. They exchanged phone numbers. 5 minutes later, Min-jun's phone rang. "Hello?" Min-jun said. "Hi, this is James Wilson." The voice on the other end sounded cautious but polite. "You sent me a message about Vertex Solutions?" "Yes," Min-jun said. "Thank you for calling. I know this must seem strange." "It does," James admitted. "But I have to ask, is this some kind of joke? Because if it is not funny." "It is not a joke," Min-jun said quickly. "I wish it was. I am a security guard at the building where Vertex Solutions has their office. Last night I saw and heard 3 of their recruiters talking about your interview. The things they said were really bad. I recorded it on my body camera." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Are you still there?" Min-jun asked. "Yes," James said quietly. "I am here. I am just trying to process this." "What exactly did they say?" Min-jun took a deep breath. "They made fun of how you look and how you talk. They said you did not fit their client's culture. They did not even really look at your qualifications. They just rejected you based on things that had nothing to do with your ability to do the job." Another silence. Then James spoke again. His voice sounded different now. Tired. Hurt. "I had a feeling," James said. "I have had so many interviews in the past 8 months." The coffee shop was busy when Min-jun arrived. People sat at small tables with their laptops. Others stood in line waiting to order. The smell of coffee and fresh pastries filled the air. Min-jun found a table in the corner away from the crowd. He wanted privacy for this conversation. He ordered a coffee and waited. His leg bounced under the table. He kept checking the door. He had never met James Wilson before. He only knew him from a LinkedIn photo and a brief phone call. What if James did not show up? What if he had changed his mind? 10 minutes later, a man walked through the door. He looked around the coffee shop searching for someone. Min-jun recognized him from the photo. James Wilson was tall and athletic looking. He wore jeans and a nice button-down shirt. He looked professional but casual. Min-jun raised his hand slightly. James saw him and walked over. "Min-jun?" James asked. "Yes, please, sit down." Min-jun gestured to the chair across from him. James sat down, but his body language was tense. He did not smile. His eyes studied Min-jun carefully as if trying to figure out if he could trust him. "Thank you for coming," Min-jun said. "I know this is strange." "That is an understatement," James said. A security guard I have never met contacts me saying he has video of recruiters mocking me. Yes, that is strange. I understand, Minjun said. If I were you, I would be suspicious too. But I promise you, everything I told you is true. I have the video with me. Do you want to see it? James took a deep breath. Before I do, I need to know something. Why are you doing this? What do you get out of it? Are you trying to sue them and you need me as part of it? Are you trying to get money from me? Minjun shook his head quickly. No, nothing like that. I do not want money. I saw something wrong and I could not ignore it. I have a body camera for my security job. It recorded everything. When I realized what I had captured, I knew someone needed to know. And that someone is you. They were talking about you. But you could lose your job, James said. If you show me this video, if we do anything with it, the company will find out. Your security company has rules, right? About confidentiality. Yes, Minjun admitted. I have thought about that. I could lose my job. But what they did was worse than breaking confidentiality rules. They discriminated against you. They probably do it to lots of people. Someone has to stop them. James looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, show me the video. Minjun pulled out his laptop and the USB drive. He plugged in the drive and opened the video file. He turned the screen so both of them could see it. Then he pressed play. As the video played, Minjun watched James's face instead of the screen. He had already seen the video several times. But this was the first time James was seeing what those recruiters had said about him. At first, James's expression was neutral. But as the recruiters started making their comments, his face changed. His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. When the female recruiter imitated his voice, James flinched like he had been hit. The video continued. The cruel laughter. The dismissive comments about his qualifications. The casual way they rejected him without any real consideration. Minjun saw James's hands curl into fists on the table. When the video ended, James sat back in his chair. He stared at the blank screen for several seconds without saying anything. Are you okay? Minjun asked quietly. James laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Am I okay? I just watched 3 people mock me like I am nothing. Like all my education and experience mean nothing. Like I am just a joke to them. He paused. So no, I am not okay. I am sorry, Minjun said. I am sorry this happened to you. James rubbed his face with both hands. You know what the worst part is? I suspected something like this was happening. I have had so many interviews in the past 8 months, 23 different companies. My resume is solid. My interview skills are good. I practiced for hours before each one, but I kept getting rejected. And each time they would give me some generic reason. We found someone who was a better fit. We decided to go in a different direction. I started wondering if there was something wrong with me. If maybe I was not as good as I thought. There is nothing wrong with you, Minjun said firmly. Your qualifications are impressive. I looked you up. MIT degree, work experience, publications, volunteer work. You should have companies competing to hire you. Should have, James repeated. But that is not reality, is it? The reality is that people like them stand between me and the jobs I'm qualified for, and they judge me based on things that have nothing to do with my ability. They sat in silence for a moment. The noise of the coffee shop continued around them. People laughed and talked. Someone's phone rang. A barista called out someone's name for their order. Normal life was happening all around them while they sat with this evidence of something very wrong. What do we do now? James finally asked. I do not know, Minjun admitted. That is why I wanted to meet with you. This is your interview. Your life. You should decide what happens with this video. James thought for a moment. Can I have a copy of the video? Of course. Minjun copied the file onto another USB drive he had brought and handed it to James. James held the small drive in his hand. It was such a tiny thing, but it held so much weight. I need to think about this, he said. If we make this public, there will be consequences. Not just for those 3 recruiters. For me too. I will be seen as a troublemaker. Other companies might not want to hire me because they will worry I will record them or sue them. That is not fair, Minjun said. No, it is not, James agreed. But that is how it works. Whistleblowers pay a price. Even when they are right, Minjun understood. He was facing the same problem. If this video became public, he would probably lose his job. Maybe he would have trouble finding another security job. Companies did not like employees who shared confidential information. even if they had good reasons. I have a friend, James said slowly. Her name is Sarah Chen. She is a journalist. She works for an online news platform. She has written articles about workplace discrimination before. Maybe we should talk to her. Do you trust her? Minjun asked. Yes, James said. We went to MIT together. She is honest and she cares about these issues. If anyone would know what to do with this video, it would be her. Minjun nodded. Okay, let's talk to her. James pulled out his phone and sent a text message. A few minutes later, his phone buzzed with a response. She wants to meet, James said. She can come here in about an hour. She says she has been hearing rumors about discrimination at recruitment firms, but she has never had proof. This video could be exactly what she needs. While they waited for Sarah, Minjun and James talked more. James told him about his job search, how he had felt confident at first after his company closed. He had good experience and a great education. He thought finding a new job would be easy. The first month I was not worried, James said. I applied to maybe 15 jobs. I got interviews with 5 of them. I thought that was a good rate. But then I got rejected from all 5. They all said the same thing. Not the right fit. I figured, okay, that happens. Maybe I need to improve my interview style. What did you change? Minjun asked. Everything, James said. I practiced more. I researched each company thoroughly. I tailored my answers to match what they said they wanted. I bought new interview clothes. I even changed my hairstyle because someone told me I should look more professional. He shook his head, but nothing changed. I kept getting interviews, and I kept getting rejected. That must have been frustrating, Minjun said. Frustrating does not even cover it, James replied. By month 4, I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was not as good as I thought. Maybe there was something wrong with the way I interviewed. I even paid for interview coaching. The coach said I was doing everything right, but I still kept getting rejected. Did you ever suspect discrimination? Minjun asked. James was quiet for a moment. Honestly, yes, but I did not want to believe it. I did not want to be that person who blamed everything on racism. I wanted to believe that if I was just good enough, qualified enough, professional enough, it would not matter. But deep down I wondered, especially when I would look at who got hired instead of me. What do you mean? I would check LinkedIn after I got rejected. I would see who they hired instead. Usually it was someone with less experience than me. Sometimes it was someone fresh out of college with no work experience at all, and they almost always looked different from me. James paused. But I could never prove anything. Until now. An hour later, Sarah Chen arrived at the coffee shop. She was a woman in her late 20s with sharp eyes and a professional manner. She carried a laptop bag and a notebook. After James introduced her to Minjun, she got straight to business. James sent me a short clip from the video, she said. I need to see the whole thing to verify it is authentic and get the full context. Minjun showed her the complete video on his laptop. Sarah watched it carefully, taking notes. She did not show much emotion on her face, but Minjun could see her pen pressing harder against the paper as the video went on. When it finished, Sarah looked at both of them. This is damning evidence. It clearly shows discriminatory hiring practices. If this becomes public, it will be a major story. If, James asked. You mean you might not publish it? No, I will definitely publish it, Sarah said. But we need to do this right. First, I need to verify a few things. I need to confirm that these are really Vertex Solutions employees. I need to make sure the video has not been edited or manipulated. And I need to talk to my editor about the legal aspects. How long will that take? Minjun asked. A day, maybe 2, Sarah said. I will work fast. But I have to be thorough. If we are going to accuse a company of discrimination, we need to be absolutely certain of our facts. She looked at Minjun. You understand that once this story goes public, your life will change. People will know you made this recording. Your employer will find out. There could be legal challenges. I know, Minjun said. I have thought about it. But I cannot pretend I did not see this. It is wrong, Sarah nodded. Then she turned to James. And you. You will be in the spotlight too. You will be the face of this story. People will interview you. Some will support you, but others will criticize you. Are you prepared for that? James looked at the USB drive still sitting on the table. I have been looking for a job for 8 months. 8 months of rejection. 8 months of wondering what was wrong with me. Now I know. It was not me. It was them. So yes, I am prepared. Someone needs to speak up. It might as well be me. Sarah smiled for the first time. Good, then let's do this right. I will start working on the story tonight. I will need to interview both of you on camera. I will need statements. I will need to contact Vertex Solutions for their comment, though I will do that at the last minute so they cannot try to stop the story. When will it publish? James asked. If everything checks out Saturday morning, Sarah said. That gives me tomorrow to finish reporting and Friday to finalize everything. Saturday morning hits at the right time. People will be online. It will spread fast. Minjun felt his stomach flip. Saturday was only 2 days away. In 2 days, this would be out in the world. There would be no taking it back. Are you both sure about this? Sarah asked one more time. Once we start, we cannot stop. Minjun looked at James. James looked back at him. They were two strangers who had met just an hour ago. But they were connected now by this moment, by this decision. I am sure, James said. Me too, Minjun agreed. Sarah closed her notebook. Okay then, let's get to work. Minjun barely slept on Thursday night. He kept thinking about what would happen on Saturday. The story would go live. The video would be public. Everyone would see what those recruiters had said. His name would be attached to it. His face would be in the article. He got up early on Friday morning, even though he did not have to work until evening. His sister called around 9 o'clock to ask if he wanted to meet for lunch. She could tell something was wrong. You sound stressed, she said. Is everything okay? Minjun wanted to tell her everything. But he decided to wait until after the story published. She would worry too much if she knew what he was about to do. I am fine, he lied. Just tired from work. Let's do lunch next week instead. After the phone call, Minjun tried to study for his exam. But he could not focus. The words in his textbook made no sense. His mind kept going to the video and what would happen when people saw it. Around noon, Sarah Chen called him. I have finished fact-checking everything, she said. The video is authentic. I confirmed the identities of the 3 recruiters. I spoke with my editor and our legal team. We are cleared to publish. The story will go live tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. That is really happening, Minjun said quietly. Yes. Are you having second thoughts? Minjun thought about the question. Was he having second thoughts? He was scared, yes. He was worried about losing his job. He was worried about what people would say. But was he having second thoughts about whether this was the right thing to do? No, he said. No second thoughts. This needs to be out there. Good, Sarah said. Because I think this story is going to be big. I have covered discrimination cases before, but this video is different. It is clear evidence. People cannot deny what is on that recording. It is going to make people angry. It is going to make them talk. And hopefully, it is going to make things change. After hanging up with Sarah, Minjun went for a walk. He needed to clear his head. He walked through his neighborhood, past the small grocery store where he shopped, past the park where kids were playing. Normal life was going on all around him. Tomorrow, his life would not feel normal anymore. Meanwhile, James Wilson was having his own difficult day. He had spent the morning being interviewed by Sarah on camera. She had asked him detailed questions about his job search, about his experience with Vertex Solutions, about how it felt to see that video. It is hard to describe, James had told her. You spend your whole life working hard. You get good grades. You go to a top university. You build experience. You do everything you are supposed to do, and then you find out that none of it matters to some people. They look at you and they have already decided you do not fit. They do not even give you a real chance. Sarah had nodded as she took notes. How many jobs have you applied to in the past 8 months? I stopped counting after 50, James said. But if I had to guess, maybe 70 or 80 total. I got interviews with 23 of them. I made it to final rounds for 6, but no offers. Not one. And now that you have seen this video, do you think other companies treated you the same way? Sarah asked. I do not know for sure, James said, but it makes me wonder. How many other recruiters looked at my application and decided I did not fit before they even spoke to me? How many times did I not get an interview because of bias I could not see? The interview had lasted 2 hours. By the end, James felt exhausted. Talking about his experiences had brought up feelings he had tried to push down. Frustration, anger, hurt, but also determination. He was doing this not just for himself, but for everyone else who had faced the same treatment. That evening, Min-jun went to work at Preston Tower as usual. He checked in with the security desk. He took the elevator up to start his rounds. When he reached the 12th floor, he paused outside the Vertex Solutions office. The lights were off. The office was empty. It looked so normal and professional from the outside. Glass walls, modern furniture, company logos on the wall. You would never know what had happened here just a few days ago. Min-jun thought about the 3 recruiters. They had probably gone home that night laughing about their jokes. They had probably come to work the next day like nothing happened. They had no idea that their words had been recorded. They had no idea that in less than 12 hours the world would see what they had done. Part of Min-jun felt guilty about that. He had recorded them without their knowledge. But then he remembered what they had said about James. He remembered the casual cruelty in their voices. The guilt faded. They had made their choices. Now they would face the consequences. His co-worker Ji-won arrived at 6 in the morning on Saturday. She looked more serious than usual. "Min-jun, I need to talk to you," she said. Min-jun felt his heart speed up. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong. But I heard something. One of the other guards mentioned that you were involved in something at this building. Something about recording a video. Is that true?" Min-jun hesitated. The story had not published yet, but it would be live in less than an hour. "Yes," he said finally. "It is true. There is going to be a news story that comes out this morning. I recorded something I saw here. Something wrong. It is going to be public soon." Ji-won looked worried. "Min-jun, you could lose your job." "Did you think about that?" "Yes, I thought about it a lot. And you did it anyway?" Min-jun nodded. "I had to. What I saw was not just wrong. It was harmful. People were being hurt by it. I could not just ignore it." Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Then she put her hand on his shoulder. "I understand. And I think you are brave. But prepare yourself. The next few days are going to be difficult." Min-jun went home and tried to rest, but he could not. At 6:45, he opened his laptop. He went to the news website where Sarah worked. He refreshed the page every few seconds. At exactly 7 a.m., the story appeared. The headline read, "Hidden Camera Reveals Tech Recruiter's Racist Mockery of Qualified Black Candidate." Below the headline was a photo of James Wilson. He looked serious and professional. Next to his photo was a still image from the video showing the 3 recruiters laughing at their desk. Min-jun started reading. Sarah had written a detailed article. She explained how Min-jun, a security guard, had witnessed the recruiters mocking James's interview. She described what was said in the video. She included quotes from the recording. She had interviewed employment law experts who explained why this behavior was discriminatory and potentially illegal. The article included the full video. Min-jun clicked play. There it was, out in the world now. The 3 recruiters laughing. Their cruel comments. Their casual dismissal of a qualified candidate. At the bottom of the article, Sarah had included a statement from Vertex Solutions. They had been contacted late Friday evening for comment. Their response was generic and defensive. Vertex Solutions maintains a strict commitment to equal opportunity in hiring. The behavior shown in this video does not represent our company values. We take these allegations seriously and will conduct a thorough investigation. Min-jun sat back in his chair. It was done. The story was out. There was no taking it back now. He decided to check social media to see if anyone had noticed the story yet. He opened Twitter and searched for the headline. His screen filled with results. In just 15 minutes, hundreds of people had already shared the article. The number kept growing as he watched. People were angry. They were shocked. They were sharing their own stories of discrimination in hiring. Min-jun read through some of the comments. "This is disgusting. These people should be fired immediately. I am a recruiter and this makes me sick. This is not what we do. How many qualified people have been rejected because of recruiters like this? Thank you to the security guard who had the courage to expose this." More and more people were talking about it. The article was being shared on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on every social media platform. News websites were picking up the story and writing their own articles about it. By 8 a.m., the hashtag #VertexExposed was trending. People were posting screenshots from the video. They were sharing the article. They were calling for action. Min-jun's phone started ringing. It was a number he did not recognize. He answered cautiously. "Hello? Is this Kim Min-jun?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Rachel Martinez. I am a producer for the morning news show Good Day America. We would like to interview you about the Vertex Solutions story. Would you be available to come to our studio this morning?" Min-jun was stunned. A national morning show wanted to interview him. "Already? I need to think about it," he said. "I understand this is sudden," Rachel said, "but this story is blowing up right now. People want to hear from you. They want to hear from the person who was brave enough to record this and bring it to light. Can I call you back in an hour?" "Okay," Min-jun agreed. Over the next 2 hours, Min-jun received calls from 7 different news programs and media outlets. Everyone wanted to interview him. Everyone wanted to hear his story. He felt overwhelmed. He called Sarah for advice. "This is what I was talking about," Sarah said. "Your life is changing right now. You need to decide how much you want to be in the public eye. You can do interviews if you want, or you can stay private and let the story speak for itself. Either choice is okay." Min-jun thought about it. Part of him wanted to hide. He did not like being the center of attention, but another part of him knew that speaking up would make the story stronger. People needed to hear why he did what he did. "I will do one interview," he decided. "Just one. I will talk about what happened and why I felt I had to record it. But that is all." "That is fair," Sarah said. "Choose carefully. Go with someone who will let you tell your story properly." Min-jun chose to be interviewed by a local news station that had always covered community issues fairly. The interview was scheduled for that afternoon. Meanwhile, James Wilson was experiencing the same media attention. His phone would not stop ringing. Reporters wanted to interview him. People were reaching out on LinkedIn to offer support or ask questions. But James also received other messages. Job offers. In just a few hours after the story published, 5 companies had contacted him directly. They wanted to interview him. They wanted to prove they were different from Vertex Solutions. James felt mixed emotions about this. He was glad to have opportunities finally, but it was frustrating that it took a public scandal to make it happen. Why had these companies not looked at his resume 8 months ago? Why did it take going through humiliation and having his story go viral for people to see his worth? Still, he took the offers seriously. He scheduled interviews with 3 of the companies. They seemed genuine in their interest, and after 8 months of rejection, he was ready to work again. By noon on Saturday, the Vertex Solutions story had been viewed over 1 million times. The video had been watched by hundreds of thousands of people. The hashtag #VertexExposed was the #1 trending topic in the country. Companies that worked with Vertex Solutions started making statements. Several announced they were cutting ties with the recruitment firm. Others said they were reviewing their relationship. The pressure was building. Inside Vertex Solutions, panic had set in. The CEO, Richard Foster, held an emergency meeting with his leadership team. The 3 recruiters in the video had been suspended immediately. But the damage was done. Their biggest clients were leaving. Their reputation was destroyed. By the evening news, the story was being covered on every major network. Experts were discussing it. Employment lawyers were explaining the legal implications. Civil rights advocates were calling for investigations. Min-jun watched some of the coverage from his apartment. He saw his own face on the screen during the interview he had done that afternoon. He heard news anchors calling him a hero and a whistleblower. He saw James speaking eloquently about discrimination in hiring. It was surreal. Just a week ago, he had been a security guard doing routine checks of an office building. Now he was part of a national conversation about fairness and discrimination in the workplace. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister. "I just saw you on the news. Call me now." Min-jun smiled. He had a lot of explaining to do. By Sunday morning, the story had reached levels no one had expected. The video of the Vertex Solutions recruiters had been viewed over 5 million times. The hashtag #VertexExposed was still trending, not just in the United States, but globally. People in Europe, Asia, and South America were talking about it. Min-jun woke up to hundreds of notifications on his phone. His social media accounts, which he rarely used, were flooded with messages. Some people praised him for his courage. Others criticized him for recording people without their permission. Some messages were supportive. Some were hateful. He decided to stop looking at his phone for a while. It was too much. Instead, he turned on the television to see what the morning news shows were saying. Every major network was covering the story. They showed clips from the video. They interviewed employment experts. They discussed the bigger picture of discrimination in hiring. One show had a panel discussion with 5 tech workers who shared their own experiences of bias. "I have been in tech for 10 years, one woman said, "and I can tell you that what happened to James Wilson happens all the time. Maybe not always that obvious, maybe not always on camera, but it happens. People make decisions based on who they think will fit in, and that usually means people who look like them." The host asked, "Do you think this video will change anything?" "I hope so," the woman replied, "because right now companies are scared. They are worried that they might be next. That fear might actually make them take a closer look at their hiring practices." Another panelist, a black man who worked as a software developer, spoke up. "I want to thank Kim Min-jun and James Wilson for having the courage to make this public. So many of us have suspected this kind of thing was happening, but we could never prove it. Now we can point to this video and say, see? We were not imagining it. This is real." Min-jun felt emotional watching this. He had just wanted to expose something wrong. He had not realized it would open up such a big conversation. Meanwhile, more information was coming out about Vertex Solutions. Several former employees contacted news organizations with their own stories. One woman said she had quit her job at Vertex 2 years ago because she could not stand the way they talked about candidates. It was not just one incident, she told a reporter. It was a pattern. They had code words they would use. When they said someone did not match the culture, everyone knew what they meant. "I spoke up about it once and I was told to mind my own business. After that, I started looking for another job." Another former employee shared emails that showed company leadership knew about discriminatory practices, but did nothing to stop them. The emails were not as obvious as the video, but they showed a company culture that tolerated bias. These revelations made the story even bigger. This was not just about 3 bad recruiters. This was about a whole company that had built its business on discrimination. By Monday morning, major companies were making public statements about their hiring practices. Several tech giants announced they were reviewing their relationships with all recruitment firms. Others said they were implementing new policies to prevent discrimination. Some announced they were creating anonymous interview processes to reduce bias. It was hard to tell if these companies really meant it, or if they were just trying to look good in the public eye. But at least they were being forced to address the issue. At Preston Tower, things were tense. Building management called Min-jun in for a meeting on Monday afternoon. He went to the meeting expecting to be fired. The building manager, Mr. Peterson, sat behind his desk looking uncomfortable. Next to him was a woman from the legal department. "Mr. Kim," Mr. Peterson began, "we need to discuss what happened last week." "I understand," Min-jun said. "I know I probably violated confidentiality policies by recording that video." "You did," the woman from legal said. "Your contract clearly states that you are not supposed to share information about building tenants without permission." Min-jun nodded. "I know, and I accept the consequences. But I could not let what I saw just stay hidden. What those recruiters did was wrong." Mr. Peterson sighed. "We understand that. And honestly, we are in a difficult position. If we fire you, it looks like we are punishing a whistleblower. But if we do nothing, it sends a message that employees can break confidentiality rules whenever they want." "So what are you going to do?" Min-jun asked. The legal woman spoke again. "We are going to give you a formal warning. It will go in your file, but you will keep your job. However, if anything like this happens again, if you record anything else without permission, you will be terminated immediately. Do you understand?" "Yes," Min-jun said. "I understand." After the meeting, Min-jun felt relieved. He still had his job, but he also felt strange. He had broken rules, yes, but he had done it for good reasons. It seemed wrong to be punished for exposing discrimination. His co-worker Ji-won had a different perspective when he told her what happened. "You are lucky," she said. Most companies would have fired you immediately. The only reason they kept you is because of the media attention. If they fired you now, it would be a public relations nightmare. I guess, Minjun said. But it does not feel like luck. It feels like I did the right thing and almost got fired for it. Welcome to being a whistleblower, Ji-won said. It is never easy. While Minjun was dealing with his job situation, James Wilson was experiencing a very different kind of attention. He had done several interviews over the weekend. His face was everywhere. People recognized him on the street. Some stopped him to say thank you. Others took pictures with him. But the attention that mattered most to James was from employers. By Monday, he had received 23 job offers. After 8 months of rejection, he suddenly had companies competing for him. He spent Monday and Tuesday taking interviews. The companies were serious. They offered good salaries, interesting projects, and strong benefits. Some even mentioned that they wanted him to help improve their diversity and inclusion efforts. One interview stood out. It was with a tech company called Innovate Systems. They had reached out on Saturday, right after the story broke. Their message was different from the others. They did not just say they wanted to hire him. They acknowledged that they probably had blind spots in their own hiring process and wanted his help fixing them. James interviewed with their team on Tuesday afternoon. The interview felt different from all the others he had done over the past 8 months. The interviewers asked real questions about his skills and experience. They listened to his answers. They asked follow-up questions that showed they were actually paying attention. There were no weird pauses, no uncomfortable moments, no sense that they had already decided before he walked in the door. At the end of the interview, the hiring manager looked at James directly. I want to be honest with you. We reached out because of the story, but after talking with you today, I can see that we should have noticed your resume months ago. The fact that we did not is our failure, not yours. We want to fix that. If you choose to work with us, we want your input on how we can do better. James appreciated the honesty. 2 days later, Innovate Systems offered him the job. The salary was excellent. The work was challenging and interesting, and they seemed genuinely committed to change. James accepted. Meanwhile, the consequences for Vertex Solutions were mounting. By the end of the first week, they had lost 60% of their major clients. The 3 recruiters in the video had been fired. But the damage went far beyond those 3 people. Brad Carmichael, the blonde recruiter who had led the mockery in the video, tried to defend himself on social media. He posted a long statement saying that the video was taken out of context and that he was not a racist person. The internet did not agree. People found his social media history. They found other posts and comments that suggested a pattern of bias. His statement only made things worse. Within days, he deleted all his social media accounts. Susan Price, the female recruiter who had imitated James's voice, also released a statement. Hers was more apologetic. She said she was ashamed of her behavior and that she was seeking therapy to address her biases. Some people accepted her apology. Many did not. Derek Walsh, the 3rd recruiter, stayed quiet. He did not make any public statements. He simply disappeared from public view. All 3 faced professional consequences beyond losing their jobs. Other companies in the recruitment industry refused to hire them. Their names were now associated with one of the biggest discrimination scandals in recent memory. The CEO of Vertex Solutions, Richard Foster, tried to save the company. He held a press conference where he announced major changes. He said they were implementing new training programs. They were hiring a diversity consultant. They were creating an independent review board to oversee hiring practices. But it was too late. The companies that had left were not coming back. The reputation was destroyed. By the end of the second week, Vertex Solutions announced they were closing their doors permanently. The news of the company shutting down spread quickly. For some people, this was justice. The company had discriminated against candidates and they paid the price. For others, it was concerning. Did this mean that one mistake could destroy an entire company? What about the employees who had nothing to do with the discrimination? They lost their jobs too. These were complex questions without easy answers. But one thing was clear. Companies were now scared. They knew that if they were caught discriminating, the internet would not forgive them. The consequences would be severe. This fear led to real changes in the industry. Multiple recruitment firms announced they were changing their processes. They were implementing blind resume reviews where names and other identifying information were removed. They were training recruiters on unconscious bias. They were tracking their hiring data to look for patterns of discrimination. Some of these changes were genuine. Some were just for show, but at least the conversation was happening. At least companies were being forced to think about their practices. Sarah Chen, the journalist who had broken the story, won an award for her reporting. Her article had sparked a national conversation about discrimination in hiring. Other journalists started investigating similar issues at other companies. Several more cases of discriminatory hiring came to light in the following weeks. Sarah used her platform to keep pushing the story forward. She wrote follow-up articles about the systemic nature of discrimination in tech. She interviewed dozens of people who had faced bias in their job searches. She highlighted companies that were doing good work on diversity and called out those that were not. 1 month after the story broke, Sarah wrote a piece about Min-Jun and James. She wanted to follow up on how their lives had changed. Kim Min-Jun still works as a security guard at Preston Tower, she wrote. He received a scholarship offer to finish his business degree full-time, but he turned it down. He says he needs to keep working to support his sister through college. However, he has started speaking at conferences about workplace ethics and the importance of speaking up when you see something wrong. About James, she wrote, James Wilson has started his new job at Innovate Systems. He is not only working as a software engineer, but also helping the company redesign their hiring process. He says he wants to make sure what happened to him does not happen to others. Several other tech companies have reached out to him for advice on improving their diversity efforts. The article ended with a quote from Min-Jun. I did not set out to start a movement. I just saw something wrong and felt I had to do something about it. If this story has taught me anything, it is that individual actions matter. One person speaking up can create change, but it is not easy. It comes with risks. People have to decide for themselves if those risks are worth it. By the end of the first month, the story had begun to fade from the daily news cycle. Other stories took its place, but the impact remained. The words Vertex Solutions had become shorthand for discriminatory hiring practices. When companies wanted to say they were committed to fair hiring, they would say, "We are not another Vertex Solutions." The video had been viewed over 20 million times total. It had been discussed in business schools as a case study. It had been referenced in congressional hearings about employment discrimination. It had become part of the larger conversation about equality in the workplace. For Min-Jun and James, life was slowly returning to normal. But it was a new normal. They were forever connected by this experience. They stayed in touch, meeting for coffee every few weeks to talk about how things were going. They had both taken risks. They had both paid prices. But they had also made a difference. And that, they both agreed, made it worth it. 3 months had passed since the video went viral. The intense media attention had finally faded. Life had settled into a new rhythm for everyone involved in the story. But the changes that started that Saturday morning in February were still spreading through the tech industry and beyond. Min-Jun sat in a lecture hall at a business conference in downtown Chicago. He was nervous. In 10 minutes, he would walk on stage and speak to 500 people about workplace ethics and the responsibility to act when witnessing wrongdoing. This was his 8th speaking engagement in the past 2 months. The first time he had been asked to speak, Min-Jun had said no immediately. He did not think of himself as a public speaker. He was just a security guard who had done what he thought was right. But the organizer had been persistent. People need to hear your story, she had said, not from journalists, but from you. They need to understand why you made the choice you did and what happened after. It will inspire others to speak up when they see something wrong. Eventually, Min-Jun had agreed. The first speech had been terrifying. His hands had shaken. His voice had trembled. But as he talked about what he had witnessed and why he felt he had to record it, something interesting happened. People listened, really listened. And afterward, several people came up to him with their own stories of times they had seen something wrong at work but had been too scared to say anything. Those conversations convinced Min-Jun that speaking about his experience was valuable, so when other conferences and organizations asked him to speak, he started saying yes. Now, as he waited backstage, he felt more confident than he had those first few times. He had learned how to tell his story in a way that connected with people. He had learned how to answer difficult questions about privacy, whistleblowing, and the costs of doing the right thing. 5 minutes, Mr. Kim, a stage manager said. Min-jun took a deep breath. He thought about how much his life had changed. He was still working night shifts at Preston Tower. He was still studying for his business degree online. But now he was also traveling to speak at conferences. He had been featured in magazine articles. He had been invited to join advisory boards for workplace ethics organizations. His sister had been shocked when she first learned what he had done. She had been worried about him losing his job and facing legal trouble. But she had also been proud. "You did what our parents would have wanted," she had told him. "You stood up for what was right, even when it was hard." The stage manager gave him the signal. It was time. Min-jun walked out onto the stage to applause. He approached the microphone and looked out at the audience. 500 faces looking back at him. Some young, some old, different races and backgrounds. All here to hear about ethics, about courage, about making difficult choices. "Thank you for having me here today," Min-jun began. 3 months ago, I was just a security guard doing my job. I never expected to be standing on a stage talking to hundreds of people. But life has a way of putting us in situations we do not expect, and how we respond to those situations defines who we are. Meanwhile, across the city, James Wilson was in a very different kind of meeting. He sat in a bright modern conference room at Innovate Systems with 10 other people. They were the company's new hiring equity task force, and James was leading the meeting. "Okay, let's look at the data from the past 2 months," James said, pulling up a presentation on the screen. "Since we implemented blind resume reviews and restructured our interview process, we have seen some interesting changes." The slides showed statistics about job applications, interviews, and hiring. The numbers told a clear story. When identifying information was removed from resumes, more diverse candidates made it through to the interview stage. When interview questions were standardized and evaluators were trained on bias, hiring decisions became more equitable. "This is working," said Lisa Park, the head of human resources. "We are seeing more diversity in our candidate pool and in our hires. But more importantly, we are not sacrificing quality. If anything, we are finding better candidates because we are evaluating them on merit rather than assumptions." James smiled. This was exactly what he had hoped to achieve. When Innovate Systems had hired him, they had been serious about wanting his help to improve their processes. They had given him real authority to make changes, and those changes were working. But James knew this was just the beginning. "These results are good, but we need to sustain them. It is easy to make changes when everyone is watching. The real test is whether we maintain these practices when the attention fades." "Agreed," said Marcus Chen, the company's CEO, who had insisted on being part of the task force himself. "That is why I want these processes to become permanent policy. Not something we do because it looks good, but because it is how we operate." The meeting continued for another hour. They discussed training programs, accountability measures, and ways to track their progress over time. James felt grateful to be part of a company that was taking these issues seriously. After work, James met Min-jun at their usual coffee shop. They had started meeting every couple of weeks after the initial intensity of the story had died down. Their friendship had grown beyond the shared experience of the video. They genuinely enjoyed each other's company. "How was your speech?" James asked as Min-jun sat down. "Good, I think. I am getting better at it. Less nervous now." Min-jun took a sip of his coffee. "How about your meeting? How is the task force going?" "Really well," James said. "We are seeing real changes in who gets hired. And the best part is the company is committed to keeping these changes permanent." "That is great," Min-jun said. "Do you think other companies are doing the same? Or is yours special?" James thought about the question. "I think it is mixed. Some companies are making real changes. Others are just doing the minimum to avoid bad publicity. I have been contacted by about 15 other companies asking for advice on their hiring practices. Some seem genuine. Others seem like they just want to be able to say they consulted with me." "How do you tell the difference?" Min-jun asked. "It is in the details," James explained. "The genuine ones ask hard questions. They admit they have problems. They are willing to examine their data and face uncomfortable truths. The others just want surface-level advice they can put in a press release." They talked for a while about the broader impact of the story. They had both been following news articles about other companies being caught discriminating. In some cases, whistleblowers had come forward inspired by what Minjun had done. In other cases, companies were being more careful because they knew they might get caught. Do you think we really changed anything? Minjun asked. Or did we just make people better at hiding their biases? Both, probably, James said. Some people learned to hide their biases better, but some people actually examined their biases and started changing, and some companies implemented real systemic changes. That is more than we had before. As they talked, Minjun's phone buzzed with an email. He glanced at it and his eyes widened. What is it? James asked. I just got an email from a scholarship foundation. They want to fund my entire business degree. Full tuition, books, living expenses. They say they support whistleblowers and people who stand up for justice. Minjun, that is amazing, James said. You should take it. Minjun stared at the email. I do not know. I need to keep working to support my sister. Your sister graduates in a few months, right? She will be able to support herself soon. And this is your chance to finish your degree without working night shifts. You should do it. Minjun nodded slowly. Maybe you are right. Let me think about it. The conversation moved to other topics. They talked about their families, their plans for the future, and normal life things that had nothing to do with videos or discrimination or viral stories. It felt good to just be friends, not symbols of a movement. A few weeks later, Minjun made his decision. He accepted the scholarship. He gave notice at his security job, thanking them for keeping him employed through the controversy. His last night shift at Preston Tower was emotional. Ji-won, his co-worker, gave him a card signed by all the security guards. You made us proud, she told him. You showed that even someone in a job that people do not always respect can make a difference. You showed that paying attention and caring about what is right matters. As Minjun walked out of Preston Tower for the last time as an employee, he paused on the sidewalk. He looked up at the building where everything had started. The 12th floor where he had seen and heard things that changed his life. He felt grateful for that night even though it had been difficult. It had led him here, to new opportunities and new purposes. Minjun started his full-time studies the following month. He dove into his business courses with renewed energy. He did not have to worry about working night shifts or staying awake through lectures. For the first time in years, he could focus entirely on his education. His professors knew who he was. Most of them respected what he had done. One professor who taught business ethics asked him to be a guest lecturer. Minjun shared his experience with the class and led a discussion about the ethics of whistleblowing, privacy, and corporate responsibility. The hardest part was not making the recording, Minjun told the students. The hardest part was deciding what to do with it afterward. I knew there would be consequences for me personally, but I also knew that staying silent would have consequences too. Not legal consequences, but moral ones. I would have to live with the knowledge that I had evidence of discrimination and did nothing with it. One student raised her hand. But you violated privacy rights by recording without consent. How do you justify that? It was a question Minjun had been asked many times. You are right. I did record without consent, and there were consequences for that. I got a formal warning at my job, but I had to weigh the privacy of 3 people behaving unethically against the harm they were causing to job candidates. I decided that exposing discrimination was more important. Others might have made a different choice. I respect that, but this was my choice. The class discussion continued for over an hour. Students debated the ethics of whistleblowing, the role of technology in exposing wrongdoing, and the responsibilities of witnesses. Minjun was impressed by how thoughtfully they approached the issues. Meanwhile, James was thriving at Innovate Systems. His work on the hiring task force had expanded. The company asked him to lead their entire diversity and inclusion initiative. It was a big responsibility, but James felt ready for it. He was not just working on hiring anymore. He was looking at retention, promotion practices, company culture, and how to create an environment where everyone could succeed. It was challenging work, but it was meaningful. He was making sure that other talented people would not face the barriers he had faced. James also started speaking publicly about his experience. Unlike Minjun, who focused on the ethics of whistleblowing, James talked about the experience of being discriminated against and how it affected him psychologically. When you keep getting rejected despite being qualified, you start to doubt yourself, James told one audience. You wonder if maybe there really is something wrong with you. Maybe you are not as good as you think. Maybe you do not deserve success. That is what discrimination does. It does not just block opportunities, it damages your confidence and your sense of self-worth. His talks resonated with many people. After each speech, people would come up to him and share their own experiences. Many were in tears. They had felt alone in their struggles. Hearing James articulate what they had felt gave them validation. 6 months after the video went viral, new legislation was proposed in Congress. The Hiring Transparency Act would require companies over a certain size to track and report data about their hiring practices. The goal was to identify patterns of discrimination before they became systemic problems. The bill cited the Vertex Solutions case as a key example of why such legislation was needed. Min-Jun and James were both invited to testify before a congressional committee about their experiences. They traveled to Washington, D.C. together. In the hearing room, they told their stories to members of Congress. Min-Jun explained what he had witnessed and why he felt compelled to record it. James described the psychological toll of 8 months of rejection and how the video had validated his experiences. Several members of Congress thanked them for their courage. One senator said, "You have given a face and a story to an issue that too many people want to ignore. Your testimony will help us make the case for why this legislation is necessary." The bill did not pass immediately. These things took time, but it was being seriously debated, and that was progress. As the first anniversary of the video approached, Sarah Chen reached out to Min-Jun and James. She wanted to write a follow-up article about how their lives had changed and what impact the story had on the industry. They met at the same coffee shop, where they had first shown Sarah the video. It felt surreal to be back in that same place a year later. "So much has changed," Sarah said as she set up her recording device. "Let's start with you, Min-Jun. Where are you now compared to a year ago?" Min-Jun smiled. "A year ago, I was working night shifts as a security guard and studying online when I could. I was tired all the time. I was worried about money. Now I am studying full-time on a scholarship. I am graduating in 3 months with my business degree. I have been offered a job at a consulting firm that specializes in workplace ethics and compliance. It is strange how one decision can change the entire direction of your life. Do you have any regrets?" Sarah asked. "No," Min-Jun said without hesitation. "It was hard. There were moments I was scared about losing my job or facing legal trouble. But I do not regret it. What those recruiters did was wrong. Someone needed to speak up." Sarah turned to James. "And you? How has your life changed?" "In every way," James said. "A year ago, I was 8 months into unemployment. I was depressed. I was questioning my abilities. I was starting to wonder if I would ever work in tech again. Now I have a job I love. I am leading diversity initiatives at my company. I am speaking around the country about discrimination in hiring. And most importantly, I have my confidence back. I know my worth again." "What about the bigger picture?" Sarah asked. "Do you think the story actually changed anything in the industry?" James and Min-Jun looked at each other. They had discussed this question many times. "It is complicated," James said. "Some companies made real changes. They examined their practices and fixed problems. Other companies just tried to look good publicly without changing much. But even the companies that only made surface changes had to acknowledge that discrimination exists. That is something. A year ago, most companies would just deny it." Min-Jun added, "I think we changed the conversation. Before, when people talked about discrimination in hiring, it was theoretical. Now there is video evidence that everyone can see. You cannot deny what is on that recording. It made the issue real for people who wanted to believe it did not exist." Sarah asked one final question. "If you could go back to that Thursday night knowing everything you know now, would you still make the same choice?" "Yes," both men said at the same time. The article Sarah wrote was published on the 1-year anniversary of the original story. It was called 1 Year After Vertex: How a Security Guard and a Job Seeker Changed Hiring in Tech. The article reviewed the impact of the story. It noted that Vertex Solutions had closed permanently. The 3 recruiters in the video had struggled to find work in the industry. Brad Carmichael had left the field entirely and was working in retail. Susan Price was trying to rebuild her career, but faced continued backlash. Derek Walsh had moved to another state and kept a very low profile. But the article also highlighted positive changes. Multiple tech companies had reformed their hiring processes. Blind resume reviews had become more common. Training on unconscious bias had increased. More companies were tracking their hiring data to identify discrimination patterns. The article included data showing that minority candidates were receiving more interviews and job offers compared to the previous year. The change was not huge, but it was measurable. Things were moving in the right direction. At the end of the article, Sarah included a powerful section about other whistleblowers who had come forward after seeing Min-jun's story. A receptionist at a law firm had recorded discriminatory comments by partners. A nurse had exposed unsafe practices at a hospital. An accountant had revealed fraud at her company. Min-jun's decision to speak up had a ripple effect, Sarah wrote. It showed other people that one person can make a difference. It showed that staying silent has costs too. It reminded us all that we have a responsibility to act when we witness wrongdoing. Min-jun read the article on the morning it was published. He felt emotional reading Sarah's words. He had just wanted to do the right thing. He had not set out to inspire others or start a movement. But somehow his choice had mattered beyond his own situation. His phone rang. It was James. Did you read the article? James asked. Just finished it, Min-jun said. Pretty surreal, right? A whole year of our lives summarized in an article. Yeah, Min-jun agreed. But it is more than just our story now. Look at all the other people Sarah mentioned who spoke up. We were part of something bigger. We were, James said. Hey, are you coming to my team's celebration dinner tonight? We just hired our most diverse group of engineers ever. I want you to be there. Absolutely, Min-jun said. I will be there. That evening, Min-jun joined James and his colleagues from Innovate Systems for dinner. The restaurant was filled with laughter and conversation. People from different backgrounds, all brought together by their talents and now working together on exciting projects. At one point during the dinner, Marcus Chen, the CEO, stood up to make a toast. I want to thank James for transforming how we think about hiring at this company, Marcus said. But I also want to thank someone else who's here tonight, Min-jun Kim. Without his courage to record and share that video, we might not have examined our own practices. We might still be missing out on amazing talent because of our blind spots. So thank you, Min-jun. You helped us become a better company. Everyone raised their glasses. Min-jun felt overwhelmed. He had come so far from that night shift a year ago. He had taken a risk, faced consequences, and come through the other side. And he had helped create real change. As Min-jun drove home that night, he thought about everything that had happened. He thought about the 3 recruiters laughing in that office. He thought about James's face when he first watched the video. He thought about all the job candidates who had been discriminated against. He thought about the changes that had come from one decision to press record. When he got home, Min-jun found a message on LinkedIn. It was from another security guard at a different building. I saw something wrong at my workplace, the message said. Something discriminatory. I am scared to speak up because I might lose my job. But I keep thinking about what you did. Can you give me advice? Min-jun sat down and started typing his response. He wrote about the risks and the rewards of whistleblowing. He wrote about talking to journalists and legal experts first. He wrote about having evidence and being sure of your facts. And he ended with the words that had become his motto. Document everything. Trust your conscience. And remember that silence protects the wrong people. Whatever you decide, make sure you can live with your choice. Because you are the one who has to look at yourself in the mirror every day. He pressed send. Another person was facing the same decision he had faced. Another person would have to choose between safety and justice, between silence and speaking up. Min-jun hoped they would choose to speak up, because change did not happen when people stayed silent. Change happened when individuals found the courage to act, even when it was difficult, even when it was scary. One decision, one video, one conversation. That was all it took to start something bigger. And if enough people made those brave choices, maybe the world could become a little more fair, a little more just, one exposed wrong at a time.